a few registered for this webinar. Thank you for taking the time out of your demanding day to spend it with me while we discuss how TTB regulates alcohol beverage advertising. Like Maggie said, we also will briefly discuss how TTB's trade practice regulations apply to industry member advertising. I first wanted to thank the folks who sent in a number of really fantastic questions, which were greatly appreciated. And they helped me to focus this presentation on the information that you wanted to learn. I'm confident that the presentation will answer the questions you posed. And I'm going to follow up with any question not covered at the end of the presentation. So let's get started. First, we have our obligatory disclaimer, which provides that we are presenting this information to help you understand and comply with the laws and regulations that TTB administers. We are not establishing any new or changing any existing definitions, interpretations, standards, or procedures. In addition, since this presentation will be recorded and is available on NAPCA's website for future viewing, the presentation may become obsolete over time by changes in laws, regulations, or policy. So please consult with the applicable laws and regulations for the most current requirements. Lastly, this presentation is about the federal alcohol beverage advertising laws and regulations that TTB administers. So please continue to check with your state for any applicable state laws. Today, we will be discussing what gives TTB the authority to regulate alcohol beverage advertising. What is advertising? Meaning, what types of advertising does TTB regulate? What mandatory information must appear in advertisements, and what practices or statements are prohibited from appearing? How does TTB view health-related statements in advertising? The role of social media in advertising and how to comply with the TTB advertising regulations. We will also discuss TTB's trade practice regulations and how they apply to certain advertising. And lastly, we're going to discuss some common issues we see when we review advertisements for compliance. So what gives TTB the authority to regulate alcohol beverage advertising? The Federal Alcohol Administration Act, or FAA Act as we call it, provides, among other things, TTB with the authority to regulate the advertising of wine, distilled spirits, and malt beverages as they are defined in the Act. When I say as they are defined in the Act, it should be noted that the Act defines regulated wines as those containing not less than 7% alcohol by volume. Additionally, malt beverages are defined as fermented products made from both malted barley and hops. So, wines under 7% alcohol by volume and beers made without either malted barley or hops or both do not fall under the TTB advertising jurisdiction. These products fall under FDA's jurisdiction for labeling and advertising. The FAA Act's advertising provisions are codified in Title 27 of the United States Code, Section 205F. The regulations that implement the FAA Act's advertising provisions can be found in Title 27 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 4 for wine, Part 5 for distilled spirits, and Part 7 for malt beverages. These regulations are available on our website for your viewing at www.ttb.gov. The major functions of these regulations, the major functions of the advertising laws and regulations is to, one, prevent deception of the consumer with respect to the products advertised. Two, prohibit statements that may mislead the consumer. Three, provide the consumer with adequate information as to the identity and the quality of the products advertised, including the alcohol content in the case of distilled spirits. I should note that the TTB's advertising authority applies to advertisements made by TTB regulated entities. That is generally importers, producers, and distributors, whether they're made directly, indirectly, or through an affiliate. This means that our regulations generally do not apply to advertisements made solely by retailers. For example, if a retailer publishes like sales flyers that includes this week's alcohol products that are on sale, the TTB advertising regulations would not apply so long as the retailer is the publisher and the TTB regulated industry member did not fund or cause the flyer to be published in any way. However, if an industry member pays a retailer or a marketing company to advertise on its behalf, the TTB advertising regulations would apply. So, what is advertising from a TTB regulatory perspective? The advertising definition is very, very broad, and it includes any written or verbal statement, illustration, or depiction, which is in interstate or foreign commerce, or is calculated to induce sales in interstate or foreign commerce, or which is disseminated by mail. Basically, if it's meant to induce sales, TTB considers it an advertisement, no matter what media you use. There are no TTB prohibitions on the types of media you may use to advertise your product. You'll notice on this slide, as well as future slides, that we have the regulatory citation in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. This is where you can read the specific regulatory provisions being addressed in their entirety, should you wish to do so. So in this case, the definition of advertising can be found in 27 CFR 4.61 for wines, 5.232 for distilled spirits, and 7.232 for malt beverages. Again, these regulations are on our website for your viewing purposes. Now we're going to go over some examples of advertisements that TTB regulates, which includes magazines, newspapers, circulars or mailers, trade booklets or sales pamphlets or other publications, alcohol beverage menus, wine cards, leaflets, shelf cards or shelf talkers, hang tags, bottle cones, pamphlets, and other materials that accompany the container, representations made on cases and cartons, such as shipping cases, that do not constitute labeling. Retail cartons are covered by their own set of regulations that we will not be discussing in detail here. Additional examples include billboards and signs, whether they're indoor or outdoor. My favorite example of a billboard advertising is the boats that go up and down the coast of the beach in Ocean City. Very, very cool method of advertising. Also, TV and radio. Some of the more modern popular modes of advertising include websites, online pop-up advertisements, social network services such as Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. Media sharing sites such as YouTube, Vimeo, TikTok, and Instagram, as well as advertisements using social media influencers. Lastly, blogs or microblogs such as Twitter, which I think is now called X, and Tumblr, mobile applications, links and QR codes that may appear on the product label or elsewhere. The material that is accessible by the link or QR code is considered advertising, and ads using augmented reality. Remember, any and all material that is for the purpose of inducing alcohol beverage sales in interstate or foreign commerce is considered an advertisement and is regulated by TTB. So let's talk about what information is required to appear on ads. All alcohol beverage advertisements regulated by TTB must bear certain mandatory information. The mandatory information is largely similar between the three alcohol beverage commodities, that is wine, distilled spirits, and malt beverages. But there are a few exceptions, so we're going to discuss each commodity separately. So wine advertisements must include the name of the permittee responsible for the advertisement. This can be a trade name as long as the trade name has been added to your permit. The address of the advertiser or some other contact information such as a telephone number, a website, as long as they can contact you through your website, or an email address. The class and type designation or distinctive designation. This must be as it appears on the label approved by TTB. So if the label provides red wine, white wine, sparkling wine, cider, or grape varietals, that is what must also appear on the advertisement. However, if it is a specialty product and the wine label has a statement of composition, such as red wine with natural flavors or white wine with natural and artificial flavors, that is what needs to be on the advertisement. To sum up, the class and type must appear on the advertisement as it appears on the approved label. For distilled spirits advertisements, you must again include the name and the address of the responsible advertiser. Again, you may use a trade name as long as that trade name has been added to your permit. You must also include the class and type or distinctive designation. For example, whiskey, gin, brandy, vodka, bourbon whiskey, cognac. Or for products that require a statement of composition, you may have something like neutral spirits with natural flavor and caramel color, or vodka with natural flavors. As with wine, the class and type must appear on the advertisement the same way it appears on your approved label. For distilled spirits, you must also include the alcohol content of the product as a percentage of alcohol by volume. Proof may also be included, but it's not required. And in certain cases, other than liqueurs, cordials, and specialties, you must include the percentage of neutral spirits and the name of the commodity from which the spirits were derived. If a commodity statement is required on the label of the product, then it's also required in the advertisement. Lastly, for malt beverages, same as wine and distilled spirits, you need the name and address or name and contact information of the responsible advertiser. Trade names may be used as long as they're added to your permit. The class statement of the product, the same as it appears on the label. Examples would be beer, ale, lager, porter, stout. And for specialty products that require a statement of composition, an example would be raspberry ale or stout brewed with pumpkin and cinnamon. Again, however the class type or distinctive designation appears on the label, it must also appear that way on the advertisement. So there are two exceptions to the required mandatory information that apply to advertisements for all commodities. The first exception applies if the advertisement refers to a general line of products or all the products of one company by company name or by the brand name common to the products. So if the advertisement refers to the company name or the brand name of the product line, the only mandatory information that is necessary is the name and address or name and other contact information such as telephone number, website, or email of the responsible advertiser. You may see these types of general ads on billboards or signs advertising a brewery, distillery, or winery, but not containing any specific details about the products. The second exception is for advertisements on consumer specialty items. These are items that are designed to be carried away by the consumer, and they include items such as non-alcoholic mixers, ashtrays, bottle or can openers, shopping bags, matches, printed recipes, coasters or pencils, shirts, caps, and visors. In this case, the only information that is required on those items is the company name or the brand name of the product. That sums up our exceptions to the mandatory information requirements. Now that we have gone over the mandatory information requirements, we're going to discuss certain practices that are prohibited when advertising your alcohol beverages. Alcohol beverage advertisements must not contain any false or untrue statements, any misleading statements, regardless of whether or not they are true, that create a misleading impression or are likely to mislead consumers. Misleading statements disparaging of competitors' products, representations that are obscene or indecent, misleading guarantees. However, money-back guarantees are not prohibited. And statements suggesting a wine or malt beverage product contains or is a distilled spirits. Additional prohibited practices include representations of the armed forces or flags that create a misleading impression. Statements inconsistent with the label or statements on the label. For example, if your advertisement contains pictures of your labeled bottles, the label on the bottle depicted in the advertisement must be a reproduction of an approved label, subject to any allowable revisions, which are listed on TTB Form 5100.31. Another example would be any class and type statements used in advertisements must be the same class and type statement used on the bottle. For example, if you have a product labeled as vodka with natural flavors, the advertisement must refer to the product as a vodka with natural flavors and not just a vodka. Untrue or misleading health-related statements, which we are going to discuss further in the next few slides. And lastly, advertisements must not contain misleading statements relating to analyses, standards, or tests, irrespective of falsity. So what do we mean by a health-related statement? Health-related statement means any statement that is related to health and includes statements of a curative or therapeutic nature that expressly or by implication suggest a relationship between the consumption of the product, the alcohol, or any substance found within the product, and health benefits or effects on health. Health-related statements include specific health claims and directional statements. A specific health claim is a type of health-related statement that expressly or by implication characterizes the relationship of the product, the alcohol, or any substance found within the beverage to a disease or health-related condition. An example of a specific health claim would be, this product is safe for diabetics, or celiac safe. Health-related directional statements are statements that refer consumers to a third party or another source for health-related information. Health-related statements also include general references to alleged health benefits from the consumption of alcohol, representations or claims that imply that a physical or psychological sensation results from consuming the alcohol product, and statements and representations of nutritional value However, this does not include statements of average analysis or serving fact statements, which we will discuss later. So what are the rules for advertising health-related statements? TTB evaluates advertisements that contain health-related statements on a case-by-case basis. We look at the totality of the advertisement to make a determination as to whether or not the advertisement is likely to mislead consumers about the product, and especially about the health effects of the product. In general, advertisements may not contain any health-related statement that is untrue or that creates a misleading impression as to the effects on health of alcohol consumption. We may require a disclaimer or other qualifying statement if we find that such a disclaimer or qualifier would dispel the misleading impression conveyed by a health-related statement. Any disclaimer, if approved, must appear as prominent as the health-related statement. Rules for advertising specific health claims. Remember, a specific health claims are those health-related statements that relate the alcohol beverage product, the alcohol, or any substance found in the alcohol beverage product with a disease or health-related condition. A specific health claim is not misleading if it is truthful and it is adequately substantiated by scientific or medical evidence. And it must be detailed with respect to whom it applies. For example, perhaps the claim only applies to adults over 60 with high cholesterol. And it must disclose the health risks associated with both moderate and heavier levels of alcohol consumption. And it must outline the categories of individuals whom any levels of alcohol consumption may cause health risks. And all of this information must appear as part of and as prominent as the specific health claim. This is certainly a tall order, but it is necessary in order to ensure consumers are not misled about the health effects of alcohol consumption. Now I will go over some of the most common health-related statements that we see when we're reviewing advertisements. Advertising that suggests the alcohol beverage has energizing or stimulating effects. For example, any statement that would insinuate ingesting the product or extra ingredients in the product would allow the consumer to drink more without experiencing the negative side effects of alcohol consumption. These types of statements fall under health-related statements as they imply a physical or psychological effect. We review such statements on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the totality of the advertisement. And generally, such statements would be viewed as misleading. Additional types of health-related statements we see include ingredient-specific statements, such as ginseng helps with chronic fatigue syndrome, taurine plays a major role in stabilizing heartbeat, or guarana, maintaining stamina, physical endurance, and aiding in rejuvenation. These are all specifically related to ingredients in the alcohol beverage product. Others may be more general, such as this fruit wine will help your memory, or wine is healthier, no headaches, or hangover free. When we review alcohol beverage advertising that includes health-related statements, we review them in totality to determine if, in context, they would tend to mislead consumers about the health effects of the product. With these particular examples that we provided and in the particular context in which they were presented, we found them to be misleading health-related statements. Other statements we see are calorie and carbohydrate claims. TTB has held that advertising claims about the calorie and carbohydrate content, including sugar, may be made on the advertisements as long as the advertisement also includes a statement of average analysis in accordance with TTB ruling 2004-1 or a serving facts statement in accordance with TTB rulings 2013-2 and 2020-1. All of these rulings are available on the TTB website. As you can see by the slide, these two statements are quite similar with a few differences that we will discuss. A statement of average analysis has no specified format, but requires the serving size, the number of calories per serving, and the number of carbohydrates, protein, and fat in grams per serving. A serving size for statement of average analysis are 1.5 for distilled spirits, 5 fluid ounces for wine, and 12 ounces for malt beverages. The serving fact statement, on the other hand, has a specified format and requires, in addition to the calories, carbs, protein, and fat disclosures, a statement listing the number of servings per container and optional alcohol content, both by a percentage of alcohol by volume and optionally in fluid ounces of pure alcohol. The serving fact statement has a number of specified serving sizes under each category that take into account how the product is likely to be consumed, as opposed to the average analysis that only has one serving size per commodity. Remember, if you are making calorie, carbohydrate, or sugar claims in your advertisements, you must either include a statement of average analysis or a serving fact statement in the ad. This is one of those common mistakes that we see. Let's now talk about the role of social media in alcohol beverage advertising. As I'm sure you're all aware, social media has become a very popular advertising tool for our industry members. In 2022, TTB published Industry Circular 2022-2, titled Use of Social Media in the Advertising of Alcohol Beverages. This industry circular provides TTB's position that advertising provisions of the FAA Act apply to all advertisements in any media, including those in social media. This industry circular modifies and supersedes TTB Industry Circular 2013-1. Basically, we removed the references to some older forms of social media, such as MySpace, and updated the circular to address more common means of advertising through mediums such as TikTok and the use of social media influencers. Social media advertisements require all the mandatory information just like any other alcohol beverage advertisement. Commonly, the mandatory information, such as the name and address of the responsible advertiser, is placed in the About section of many pages. Required product information is typically included in the product-specific posts or on the product or shop pages. In certain cases where space is limited, the industry member may include a link in the advertising that takes the consumer directly to the mandatory information. Also, the prohibited practices with regards to misleading information, including misleading health-related statements, also apply to social media advertisements. So let's now talk about the use of social media influencers to advertise alcohol beverage products. As stated previously, TTB Industry Circular 2022-2 was updated, among other reasons, to provide the Bureau's position on advertising through social media influencers. TTB defines social media influencers as those individuals on social media who have audiences or followers and use their influence to persuade their audience to purchase products. In some cases, advertisements by social media influencers are regulated by TTB, and in some cases, they're not. So, how do we decide if a social media influencer post or pages are advertisements regulated by TTB? If the posts or pages directly or indirectly advertise an industry member, their brand, or a specific product, we may consider the posts made by the social media influencer to be advertisements regulated by TTB. In making this determination, we will consider whether or not the industry member, directly, indirectly, or through an affiliate, published, disseminated, or caused to be published or disseminated the advertisement, in this case, the social media influencer's post, or if the social media influencer was compensated directly or indirectly by the industry member in return for the endorsement, whether by free product or other items of value. Any links on an industry member's website or social media page to such posts will always be considered part of the TTB regulated advertisement. So what are the rules if an industry member uses a social media influencer to advertise its products? Such posts or pages would need to follow the same rules as any other advertisement. All mandatory information must be present, and the advertisement is subject to those prohibited practice regulations discussed previously. If space is limited, the mandatory information requirements can be satisfied by a direct link to the information. Now we're going to talk about some of the common issues that we see when reviewing alcohol beverage advertisements for compliance. TTB monitors the advertising of alcohol beverages through a combination of pre-market review of advertising material, which is a service we provide to our industry members that I'm going to discuss in more detail in a moment, referrals and complaints, such as those by consumers, other government agencies, or industry members, and internal selections for review. Some of the most common issues we see when reviewing advertising includes missing mandatory information. Specifically, the required class, type, or distinct designation is either often missing or it's misstated. As a reminder, the designated shown on the product labels of the approved cola should be used as the class designation in advertising. For example, if your product cola has a designation such as vodka with fruit juice and sparkling water and natural flavors, then your advertisement should also have that complete designation. Labels depicted on ads don't match the colas, is another error we commonly see. Sometimes the ads have labels that contain different graphics or text that was not approved on the cola and is not an allowable revision. Calorie or carbohydrate claims without a statement of average analysis or serving fact statement. Misleading or unsubstantiated health claims. Organic claims in advertising for products that are not entitled to such claims. And ABA claims on ads when the product cola does not list an ABA. Those are the most common that we see. Now I'm going to talk a little about advertising and marketing practices as they apply to TTB's Unlawful Trade Practice Authority. We do have some videos on our website with regards to the 4 unlawful trade practices that I highly recommend you check out. Those are on Tied House, exclusive outlet, commercial bribery, and consignment sales. Primarily with respect to marketing and advertising, there are some relevant Tied House rules that you should be aware of. Under the Tied House regulations, it is unlawful for an industry member, that is generally an importer, producer, or wholesaler, to induce, directly or indirectly, a retailer to purchase its alcohol beverages to the exclusion of alcohol beverages offered for sale by other persons in interstate or foreign commerce. There are 7 ways to induce that are covered by the TTB regulations, but we're only going to focus on the ones relevant to this advertising presentation. Those include industry member paying or crediting a retailer for any advertising. That is an inducement and may lead to a tied house violation. The industry member providing anything of value, including marketing or advertising support to a retailer, is an inducement and may lead to a tied house violation. However, there are exceptions, and that is what we are going to go over in a bit of detail. The first exception is for product displays. These include items such as wine bins, racks, barrels, casks, shelving, or similar items. These do not include items that have some other function than displaying the product. For example, this would not include coolers or refrigerators or grills, or any other item whose primary function is not for displaying product. There are some limitations for these items. The total value may not exceed $300 per brand. Transportation and installation costs are excluded in that figure. All product displays must bear advertising material about the product or the industry member permanently inscribed or securely affixed. Product displays may be conditioned upon the purchase of only the quantity of product necessary for the initial completion of such display, and no other condition can be imposed. Anything that falls outside of this exception with respect to product displays would be considered a thing of value and may lead to a tied house violation if provided to the retailer. Industry members may also provide to retailers point of sale advertising material and consumer specialty items under certain conditions and limitations. Point of sale advertising material are items to be used in the retail establishment to attract consumer attention to the products of the industry member. These items include posters, placards, inside signs, whether they're electric, mechanical, or otherwise, window decorations, trays, coasters, mats, menu cards, paper napkins, foam scrapers, back bar mats, thermometers, clocks, calendars, alcohol beverage lists, or alcohol beverage menus. Consumer advertising specialties are items designed to be carried away by the consumer. Examples include t-shirts, caps, visors, pencils, shopping bags, matches, printed recipes, ashtrays, coasters, etc. Again, the consumer specialty items are intended to be provided to the consumer by the retailer. For example, uniforms given to retail staff would not be covered by this exception. And there are conditions and limitations. All items must bear industry member advertising matter, which is permanently inscribed or securely affixed. Retail name and address may also appear on point of sale advertising materials. The industry member may not pay or credit a retailer for using or distributing these materials. Another exception that an industry member may provide to a retailer is outside signs. Provided that the sign must bear industry member advertising matter, permanently inscribed or securely affixed, the retailer may not be compensated directly or indirectly, such as through a sign company, for displaying the signs, and the cost of the signs may not exceed $400. Certain equipment. Promotional glassware or similar containers made of other materials such as buckets are considered equipment under the TTB regulations. And in general, equipment provided to a retailer free of charge would be considered an inducement and may lead to a trade practice violation. However, certain equipment as specified in the regulations, such as promotional glassware or buckets, may be sold to the retailer by an industry member, provided that the price must not be less than the cost to the industry member who initially purchased the items, and the price must be collected within 30 days of sale. Lastly, in general, any advertising service provided by an industry member on behalf of a retailer is considered an inducement with certain exceptions. An industry member may list the names and addresses of 2 or more unaffiliated retailers selling its products, provided that the price may not be listed except where the state or political subdivision is the exclusive retailer. And the listing is the only reference to the retailers in the ad and is relatively inconspicuous in relation to the entire advertisement. The advertisement may not refer to a single retailer except where the retailer is an agency of the state or a political subdivision of a state. TTB looks at the totality of the advertisement for compliance with this requirement. For example, if you list 2 or more unaffiliated retailers selling your product in 2 separate Facebook posts, we're going to look at the entire Facebook page to determine if you are in compliance. Any advertising service beyond this would constitute an inducement, which may lead to a tied house violation if the other elements of a violation can be proven. This presentation only touches on the main exceptions dealing with advertising materials in particular. There is some additional exceptions in the regulations for other services, such as sampling activities that can be provided at a retail establishment. So I encourage interested parties to take a look at TTB's trade practice videos we have on our website. Of course, if you have any questions, you can feel free to give us a call, and I'm going to be providing our contact information shortly. The Market Compliance Office does offer a pre-market review service to our industry members. We review all types of advertising, from posters to and hang tags to social media, TV, or video commercials. We also review retail cartons for compliance. Pre-clearing advertisements or cartons allows an industry member to avoid additional expenditures that might otherwise be incurred by having to revise their non-compliant advertising or carton after its use. Once you receive your label approval, you can forward your advertisement to us for review. We'll review the advertisement and let you know if it's compliant or if it's not. And we'll help you get it in compliance. We are here to help folks. So definitely, certainly take advantage of our pre-market review. Information and images of the advertisements or cartons you wish for us to review can be sent to market.compliance@ttb.gov. If you are sending material, please include the COLA ID number for the product being advertised. It does help with our review. Before we end the presentation, I want to thank all you again who sent in the really fantastic questions that were provided in advance. I really do appreciate you sending them in. They helped me to focus this presentation on the information that you wanted to learn. And I hope the presentation was able to answer your questions. However, I do have one additional question that I wanted to cover that wasn't addressed in the presentation slides. So I'd like to address it now. The question that was sent in, and I think it's a really good one, is what, if any, permit liability does a licensed producer hold for advertising violations made by private brands it produces for? How does the TTB handle advertising violations for private brands that do not hold a TTB permit? And so I thought this was a really good question. First, I would like to say that TTB has had great success working with its industry members to remove or revise advertisements that we find are not in compliance. Typically, this is done without adverse permit action. When TTB finds out an out of compliance advertisement, we'll look for the TTB regulated industry member that is responsible for the advertisement. So if the brand owner is a TTB regulated wholesaler, which is often the case, and is responsible for the advertisement, we will address that advertising issue with the brand owning wholesaler. However, if the brand owner is not a TTB regulated wholesaler, We would address any advertising compliance issue with the producer of the product and expect that he will work with his brand owner to get the advertising into compliance. So this concludes our presentation. I hope you found this information useful. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have, either on advertising or trade practice compliance. I know I only touched very briefly on trade practices, so I just want to let you know that an inducement by itself is not a violation. We have to show that there are other elements present. So that's why I really do encourage folks to go ahead and take a look at our trade practice videos so that you can understand the elements of a violation. I really wanted to focus in this on this presentation on those items that you can provide to retailers, because I think that's important to understand what items are a safe harbor. So if you have any questions, here is our contact information up on the screen. Feel free to give us a call. If you have questions, you can either send it to the market.compliance@ttb.gov or the trade practices at ttb.gov. Or if you prefer, you may also submit your questions to Maggie, and she would be willing to forward it on to us for a response. Thank you so very much for joining me this afternoon.
Lisa, thank you so much. Keep your slide up. Let's share that screen. It looks really good. So thank you, Lisa, for your time and for sharing your valuable knowledge with us. We thank you all for joining NABCA and TTB for this presentation. And again, remember, if anyone has follow-up questions, to email me or the market.compliance@ttb.gov or the trade practices email that you see up there. And also, please visit the nabca.org website for various resources, including white papers, previous webinars, and other materials. And we invite you to be on the lookout for a NABCA survey that will soon follow and be sent to you. So we'd be grateful to have your feedback about this webinar and other ideas about what you'd like to see. It is our goal to give you the education and the tools you need to perform your functions effectively. So thank you again for joining us. This presentation is now concluded, and we wish everyone a great day. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye.